starting base for my castle was an industrial paper tube, which I cut to the desired lengths, which would form the turrets. Using the paper tubes as a main design feature, I planned out a two-sided building which would enable the grandchildren to play on either side of the castle, inside or outside. When cutting with a sharp blade, make sure you have extra cardboard under the piece that you're cutting so you don't mark up the table or the surface you're working on. I am working on my dining room table and I don't want to scratch it up. I don't have a high-tech computer generating system to print everything out for me. I did things the old-fashioned way, with my two hands and my creativity. I fashioned every stone, every brick, and I placed each one by hand. No, I didn't count how many bricks went into this project. I wanted the inside accessible for play. After sketching out a very rough plan on paper of my vision, I began measuring and cutting the cardboard to build my castle form. Once I knew the size of the castle building, I then planned the size of the base it would sit on. Using a craft knife and a ruler, I began cutting my cardboard pieces. My goal with this project was to use affordable, recycled materials that anyone may have access to. I believe it is possible to make just about anything out of paper or cardboard. So instead of just throwing away all those shipping boxes, I recycled them into a play castle. I used 3/4 inch plywood for a strong base covered with 3 layers of cardboard. I wanted room to add a moat going all the way around the castle with a bridge to cross over onto a piece of land which I suppose would look like an island. My plywood was in 2 pieces because I didn't have a larger piece on hand. So I glued them together and I was a little bit worried about that. So I added 3 layers of cardboard on top of it, of course glued. The first layer was the largest piece of cardboard I had, but the second layer is many pieces, so I had to number them. It was much easier to glue the smaller pieces. The final layer was a solid piece, well, almost. I taped 2 pieces together to make 1 piece. I used books to weight them down and waited for them to set before adding the next layer. After most of my pieces were cut, it was time to start assembling the building. It took me over 160 hours to create this playset. There are probably other time-saving ways to achieve the results of what I have done, but I was striving to keep expenses very low and so limited my use of materials to items that could easily be recycled. My main expense was the glue, and I did use a lot of glue. Like almost 3 bottles, plus I don't know how many glue sticks, a lot. The structure needed to be sturdy and durable, so I used 2 to 3 layers of cardboard for strength. In the beginning, I used hot glue for construction because it adheres very quick, but I don't fully trust hot glue by itself as far as durability, because it can be pulled apart. But I knew that later on I would be covering everything with paper and using tacky glue to strengthen the structure so it would be fine. Most castles are built on a hill, so I wanted it to be elevated. I started with a platform the size of the castle plan. I added floor joists and cross beams, just as you would in any building. I did not immediately attach the paper tubes that would become the turrets because I wanted easy access to the main platform for cutting, measuring, and constructing the 3 levels of the castle interior. Next, I planned the 3 levels of the walls, 1 story at a time, which would be sandwiched between the floors. The floors were double thickness. After my pieces were pre-cut for the walls and the floor levels, then I could glue the turrets in place. I used tacky glue on the bottom and some hot glue where it would touch the raised platform. And I did place books on top of the towers and gave it some time to set before continuing. While they were setting, I glued together the 2 floors. Hot glue works great for quick assembly. The floors needed support columns, so I made several. Here is my basic structure. Right now the walls are 1 layer thick, but they will get thicker once I brick them inside and out. I prepared the tops of the towers, or turrets. I decided not to cut out the doors of the turrets because the doors would be too small and their little toys would fall inside and they wouldn't be able to get their hands in to retrieve them. So the door openings would just be fake, just painted to look like doors. Right now the front looks kind of ugly with those raw edges, so I added some facing to make it look a little cleaner. This would create parts of the wall extending outward, which would only add more interest to its overall design in the end. At first, I thought to use tag board to make the window edges look neater, but later I did something else with them, so this was an unnecessary step. I separated the cardboard to create a band around the top of my towers with an interesting texture for style. The turrets, which sometimes I call them towers, I guess they're technically a turret because they're part of the building. The turret tops are made from 2 cones with different slopes cut from poster board. I made window frames backed by black poster board to add to the turrets. I added crenellations to the very top of the 2 walls because that is a typical design of medieval castles. Here I am cutting out tiles, which are actually petals from my card making tools. This shape seemed to work well for the style I was looking for. I cut 1,000 and I almost used them all. I was happy to discover that the texture of egg carton worked really great for a stone or brick texture. Not totally happy with the door and the window openings, I sought for a better solution. Then I remembered I had a piece of EVA foam that I could use to trim out the doors and windows. I was happy with that solution. At first, I cut out individual stones and glued them on, but I don't think that was the best idea. It's far better to cut out the window frames and keep them whole and just use strips for the doors because the foam is easily bendable. I did cut stones into the frame but did not cut all the way through. Still wanting to clean up the raw edges of the corrugated cardboard, I used brown paper to hide all the edges throughout the project. That does two things. It hides the edges, and it makes the whole structure that much more solid and strong because it crosses over the seams. I used a lot of brown paper, the same paper you have in grocery sacks or packaging wrap. Using EVA foam, I made matriculations as a design feature, which I placed under where the upper wall overhung a bit, making it all seem like it was planned that way from the beginning. Yes, I had a general plan for the structure, but the details evolved over the process. This was a learning process for me. With the upper wall protrusion, I felt it needed large vertical blocks to separate it from the horizontal blocks, so again, it made it look like it was all part of the plan from the beginning. When covering the edges, I cut, pre-folded, fit multiple times, making sure it will work before applying any glue. I just wanted nice, clean edges. My inspector checks my work to be sure that it's satisfactory. One nice thing about this project was when I got tired of doing one tedious task, I could switch and work on another facet of the project for a change of pace, which I did often. I used my mat cutter to cut strips of EVA foam for trim. I used a fingernail file or an emery board to sand the edges of the window. Then I glued thin strips of brown paper inside the window frames, again trying to achieve a clean, smooth edge and hide the raw edges of the corrugated cardboard. I cut off a strip of the emery board to make an even smaller sanding tool. Having crafting tweezers is very helpful when working on small details like this. You can get a set at the Dollar Tree. In the end, I split the EVA foam window frames in half with scissors. One side would go on the inside, the other on the outside. I glued the plastic canvas to one of the frame's sides to be glued on the inside. This worked out well because after I bricked both the interior and exterior walls, it made the window frames look inset. Purely happened by accident. So maybe that extra layer of tagboard window frames wasn't a bad idea after all. But now I know. Like I said before, this whole project was a learning experience for me. If I did this again, I would have made my floors about an inch taller and my windows and doors bigger. So my scale is not exactly as it should be. The knights I later found from Hobby Lobby after my castle was pretty much built were just under 2 inches, not counting the flag they're holding or sword. They fit best, but the knights that I ordered from China were like 2 to 2.5 inches tall. They were almost too big for my castle. 4-inch floors would have been better. I am glad that I bought this small glue gun because my big glue gun would not have been able to fit into these small places to work. I cut thin strips from the egg cartons to also use as trim that would kind of look like cement. Note to self, next time I do brickwork, I should draw lines so that I don't go downhill. Then my bricks would be straight. Live and learn. I dry fit each brick to make sure it will fit before gluing, so much trial and error took place. Always have those tiny scissors handy, as they get used a lot. The exterior bricks are thin, cut directly from the egg cartons, but the interior bricks I used were thicker because I made them from the leftover scraps. Here I am cutting 1-inch wide strips from the paper I made to cover the crenellations on the tops of the walls. See my video, How to Make Realistic Bricks in Stone, to see how I did that. Looks awesome. I can't wait to start painting. I even impress myself. The floor bricks are the bricks that I made from the paper I made from the scraps. I placed our family coat of arms in the middle of the floor with decoupage, so now this castle is a family heirloom. Let me just say that I have never made any miniature models before, so I may not know what I'm doing, but I'm willing to learn in the process. I decided to cover the entire finished surface with tissue paper. You're probably wondering why. I wanted to seal all the pieces so that they wouldn't be any little edges that might easily be grabbed and pulled off by a young child. Tissue paper is thin, so I would maintain most of the texture created thus far. I applied it with a layer of slightly watered down glue. The tissue paper may also add some extra texture, which is fine, especially when creating stone and brick texture. My aim was to solidify the entire structure to prepare it for painting. I paint the glue on with a brush and gently push the tissue paper into the bricks or stone in the cracks and crevices, allowing it to conform around the shapes and into the cracks. I found the smaller the piece of tissue paper, the easier it was to work with. I especially wanted to include the stone-like feature around the window for an added layer of adhesion. The tissue paper with the glue, plus a paint job, and finished with varnish should make a durable surface, I hope. The true test will be as the children play with it. The painting was done in multiple layers. I started with dark gray for the mortar, light gray for the stones, then dabbled light brown, darker grays, and some white to add an interesting texture and coloring. Then I decided to go over the cracks with black for added depth using a liner brush. I made the bridge separately because it would be easier to build, paint, and varnish before attaching it to the castle platform. So I had to wait until at least the front of the castle was finished before securing the bridge. I have a separate video showing the process of building the bridge. It's called Making a Realistic Stone Bridge. I made this toy castle for two of my grandsons to play with. This will be their Christmas gift this year. They're into dinosaurs and dragons, so I felt a castle would be perfect for them. It's made out of cardboard, brown paper from grocery sacks, poster board, industrial paper tubes, egg cartons. This is not just a model. This is a play toy, a dollhouse of sorts for boys. Only they will battle with knights and horses and dragons instead of dolls. For the island, or the piece of land, on the other side of the moat, I started with florist foam to make a hill or a bank that would be higher than the moat, then covered it with brown paper. I figured the foam would be easy to stab the tree post into. The trees are made with cocoa flower pot liners, separated in half, cut into triangular shapes, placing the larger ones on the bottom, stacking them larger to smaller as you come to the top of the tree. I trimmed them with scissors and then spray painted them green. I did put glue on the stick as I placed the triangular pieces on the stick, and then when I was ready to secure the tree, I used a much stronger glue, a super glue, to put the trunk of the tree stabbed into the foam. For the rocks, I used ends from egg cartons. Sometimes there's this little corner edges and things. I said, I'll save this. This will probably make good rocks. I made grass, sort of like grass texture, with wet toilet paper. It was laid down with thin glue and dabbed with a brush to give it sort of a rough texture. I painted the rocks and the sandy path and the grass. The water in the moat is made using toilet paper and glue. It takes 3 layers. Each layer is put down with thin glue. I just mixed a little water in the glue so it's kind of a little bit runny. You put the glue down with a brush, then you put the toilet paper down, and you have to work up 3 layers to get enough toilet paper for the effect you want. With the flat end of a brush, you can push up small waves. Let that harden and fully dry before painting. Dragging a brush with a little bit of white paint over the painted surface will highlight the ridges and the ripples in the water, almost creating a foam-like appearance that moving water may have. Wait 72 hours and apply a clear coat of gloss varnish on the water. For added depth, add another layer of glue. Just paint the glue right all over the whole thing. Let it completely dry, then add as many layers of a high gloss varnish as you desire to make it look more like water. My son is building a special wooden box to keep the castle in, which I will share in a future video to protect it when it's not being used. Perhaps I'll be able to share a video of the boys opening their gift this Christmas, so stay tuned. If you learned something or found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to see what else I might be making. Leave me a comment. Tell me what you thought of this project, or perhaps give me some suggestions of what else I might make at a future time. Thanks for watching.